Striketeam Commander has been on Kickstarter for a couple days, and at this point, I decided I would make a little video just talking about the existing Striketeam models. Now, they weren't sold explicitly as Striketeam models. They were just sold as 32 millimeter collectors, promotional, whatever models. But yeah, they're Striketeam and Battlezone models, of course. Not every model has an equivalent that has been revealed so far in Kickstarter, but most do, and it's also pretty clear what they're going to be, of course. So I don't have the complete collection. I did not buy the UCM one because I just don't collect UCM stuff in Zone or Fleet, so I had no interest in getting it. And I didn't get the Shaltari either, and that was just because in most of the art, when a Shaltari is shown like outside of their battlesuit armor or whatever, they're shown in pretty dramatic, flashy, vivacious sort of armor. And I didn't think that sort of fashion was very captured in the model they made. Luckily, one of the revealed renders for a famous commander or a hero or something for Striketeam does look just like the art, so I might pick that up. But in any case, I'm going to go through and just show off the models, their dimensions, talk about any little issues with them. Yeah. So first up is the first model that they revealed for the 32 millimeter stuff, the Scourge Warrior. Now, this is not a perfect image in terms of getting the sizing and scale. When you consider the base and a little bit of the angle of the camera, subtract about 5 millimeters off or so there. It's around 35-ish millimeters in height for the actual model itself, and I've got it sitting here next to a couple of the 10 millimeter Dropzone models. And yeah, this model, I didn't have any real issues with it, no casting problems. I was pretty happy with it overall. The arm in front with the gun and the hand is one piece, and the rest of the body is another piece. It's pretty straightforward, and I think it's a good model that captures the sort of aesthetic of the Scourge Warrior with the trench coat and the armor, the plasma gun. It's got the backpack on the back as well. Yeah, I like it. Continuing with Scourge, we have the Prowler and the Raptor. These are notable in that they do not have a base, and so far the rules that are revealed for Striketeam all assume that every model has a base. I'm going to guess that they'll just say count as X millimeter base. And oh yeah, to comment on the previous Scourge Warrior, that was a 30 millimeter base. Most of these models have a 30 millimeter base. Yeah, these are interesting just because they're pseudo vehicles, sort of infantry. I kind of wonder, the rules in Dropzone, they were changed a while back to have all of the sort of infantry-sized vehicles now able to enter buildings, whereas previously they couldn't because they weren't explicitly infantry. And I almost wonder if there's a little bit of future-proofing for Striketeam later, because there are models that could work for that kind of game, but it'd be kind of weird if they could go into a building in Striketeam, but couldn't do it in Dropzone. But that might have been so far back that it really wasn't even on their mind at the time and just happened to be a strict Dropzone game change. In any case, yeah, these are fun to do up. There are ball and socket joints on the legs, so pretty straightforward to assemble. And otherwise, the only extra piece is the acid spewing mouth gun thing on the Raptor on the right there is a distinct piece. Otherwise, it's 4 or 5 pieces total. No real casting issues again with these. Happy with them as well. In our Resistance Fighter, while this has never been called anything explicitly, it is clearly a Juggernaut. And no, not that Juggernaut. The Juggernaut that is being shown off in the Kickstarter, it is almost identical. It's almost certainly going to be that model. And this one, again, same thing. The gun and the arms were one piece, and the body was a single piece as well, as far as I recall. It wasn't too finicky to get together. This one as well didn't have any casting issues, so happy with that. I think there was one small mold line in the back that was very easy to take care of, but it was in like the folds of its little skirt kill thing, so you could barely even tell. Yeah, I quite like this model. I'm not a huge fan of the little skull thing on the knee because I don't really like the Mad Max, cannibal, post-apocalyptic sort of aesthetic that a lot of Resistance stuff has. But the one skull is completely fine. It's not overbearing. It still has a overall kind of brutal aesthetic that I think is pretty good. And we got ourselves some large, fleshy entities here. It's the Bioficer Hulk and the Bioficer Drone. The Hulk, of course, being the larger one. And it's notable for being the only of the collection that is on a 40mm base, while the drone's on a 30mm like the rest of the set. I just want to comment that these were quite a bit of fun to paint up. I haven't really done this kind of fleshy thing before, and I spent a while on it. Pretty happy with the results. The guns, I'm iffy on. I think it's kind of interesting when you have the contrast between the very mechanical geometric design of the guns and the fleshy bio drone stuff. But yeah, the only real issue is, again, these have the setup that most of the models have, where the arms and the gun are one piece and the body is another piece. And they were a little more difficult to actually get together without gaps. You might not be able to see, but there are some gaps still present there. Luckily, kind of like the Resistance models, I can just tell myself that it's from the lore. Like the Resistance, when you have gaps and mold slips and shit, you can just say, oh, it's ramshackle, it's falling apart. That just is how it is. Hooray. In these drones, we can just say that they're already starting to rot, so if there's some weird little gaps in them, it's because they're starting to fall apart. Thanks, lore. But really, I could have spent a little more time with liquid green stuff, putty, whatever might have worked. It's not too noticeable. I do like the models a lot. Not enough that I think I'm going to actually collect Bioficer stuff for Zone or Fleet, but we'll see as more Zone stuff gets revealed. You don't really obviously see any of this kind of bio drone theme with the Dropfleet models, of course, because that would be ridiculous to have a gigantic blob of meaty flesh floating through space with a gun jammed in the middle of it. Although maybe they'll do it for the Dreadnought. I just love the little Pungari guys. They're great. They serve well as a horde of whatever objective impeding stuff, be it Zone or Fleet, and presumably they're going to have a similar role in Striketeam or Battle Zone, because the box that's been shown off in the Kickstarter for them is 20 models. So this one little innocent, adorable fella is probably not going to have the most impact on games other than being a great little mascot. But yeah, from what I recall, I think it was 3 pieces for this one, with the 2 arms and the body being the 3. This one did have a bit of a mold slip along the back, but it was fixable because it was kind of in the grooves of the legs. As you can see, the legs are kind of bumpy, so it was fixable. Yeah, I think these are going to be, your standard horde thing. So I would expect to paint a lot of them if you're going to make a list with them. And considering the time I spent on this, and it looks okay, but I don't know if it reflects the amount of time I spent on it. I don't know if I'm going to get 20 of the guys. And the PHR. First, I got the Siren here. I'm quite happy with this. The bodysuit, not as much. I used the Vallejo Express black paint, I think the Lotus black specifically. It came out a bit blue, which I like. I'm happy with that. I was expecting to be more of a black, but my PHR stuff is all painted blue, as you can see with the 10mm Sirens there. So works out great, but it's a little smudgy. Oh well. The skin and everything and the hair, I'm happy with, just because I have never painted actual faces before this. I've only been painting Dropzone, Dropfleet, vehicles, ships, whatever, and never really ventured into 28, 32mm, whatever stuff. And prior to this, everything had been with a helmet, because you should always wear a helmet on the battlefield. It's just basic safety. So it was a bit of experience. Half the face being blocked by the hair did make the iron there impossible, but I'm pretty happy with what I did for the rest of it. Yeah, so next is the Aristeus Hellion. Where's... The Hellion, I think, gave me the most issues modeling, really. It had a big mold slip right along the front that you might still be able to see a little bit of in the picture there. And it comes in three pieces: the blade arm, the head, body, left arm, left leg, and the right leg at the second to the bottom of the metal belt thing on the leg there. And there's a decent amount of like gap filliness with this one. I'm still happy with how it came out, but this one gave me the most hassle. And this one doesn't explicitly have, of course, any models in Dropzone. And so far, nothing's been shown off in the Kickstarter that corresponds with it. But I think it's completely fair to assume that this is going to be like the Melee Immortal sort of equivalent model. And yeah, I think that about sums it up with everything. Uh, the Kickstarter is still going, so there might be more stuff that's shown off that'll be related to these things. But for now, I just thought it'd be neat to talk about what I've got and show off the existing model line. So yeah, have a good one.